Good morning. Well, now officially good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, we'll give it a few minutes for everyone to drop in and get connected as people sort of come in over lunch, during lunch or after lunch, depending on where you are today. We look forward to this session and really getting into it. It's something we've been building for some times, and so really looking forward to sharing the insights that we've been able to produce in conjunction with ChannelBoost. And it's going to be quite an interactive session, which I hope that there's going to be a lot of insights that you can take back to the leadership conversations, share with your partners as well, and help you be more impactful how you deliver partnerships in and around your organization. So we've got the hour as per your calendar. We're going to give you a treat, make it 45 minutes today, or aim to, depending on how we go. But this is not a TED Talk. It's not an email. I could have just sent you around the report to do it. We want it to be an interactive discussion. So before I introduce our guests shortly, we want to have a very deliberate, active chat ongoing. That as we present and share insights and benchmarks from the report, and Rob turns off his phone, we want to make sure that it's useful and insightful for everyone that's here today. We've got people joining us from right across APAC. A lot of the clients that we worked with at Hockey Stick along the way, either previously or ongoing, and right across our networks, across the ANZ tech ecosystem largely. So with that, encourage everyone in the chat, which you'll just see. Dane, introduce yourself and others. Sammy, welcome from Wellington. Where you're from, what company you work at, and what's your core partnerships focus today? The idea of what we're driving forwards here is making sure it's a useful session for the attendees at it. So we've got people in from Sydney, Wellington, Melbourne, Western Australia. Des, Sydney, formerly Brisbane. Good to see you. Bevan, great to see you. Reese, thanks for joining us from the sunny coast. Hopefully it's sunny. We'll get into it. The numbers are climbing as we slowly gear up. We'll get into it. We'll give it another minute or two. And then we'll kick off. Hello from New Zealand, a few more from up in Brisbane, which is great to see. Lots of focus on the channel here. Focus on referral partnerships, partner managers, heads of partnerships. A good distribution right across the region. All righty. Okay, well, what do you reckon, Rob? Thumbs up. We'll get into it. We'll give another minute. Yep. Okay, fantastic. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet online today. I would also like to pay my respect to elders past and present. In terms of this report of what we've produced and what we've been working on, it's absolutely wouldn't have happened without a bunch of key people behind the scenes. And so first I want to give a big shout out to Scott Cooper, who leads marketing operations and marketing at Hockey Stick for us. He's been the brainchild behind the scenes to bring this to life. It's been an expert masterclass in all things. So, beyond what we're presenting today, just kind of consider firstly the high quality of the report, the way it's gone about, how it's been able to drive a huge audience right across the region has been really impressive. So huge shout out to Scott. He's in the background, also be driving the chats and the polls along with us. Beyond them, I might firstly pass over to Sinead in a chronological order. Over to you to introduce yourself, where you're dialing in from today, and what your focus is.
Thanks, Brian. Chronological order. Does that mean that I'm younger than you, Rob? Oh my goodness, that was a bit of a... or is that you know me longer? Who knows?
I was going by the screen just for any clarity of that.
Oh, I see. Okay, righto. Hi, everybody. My name is Sinead Fitzgerald, and I'm from Microsoft. I have one of the awesome roles in Microsoft. I get to work with partners, with software development companies who have built specific apps for me. It's in healthcare, so healthcare, public sector, and education. And so my role is to help those companies grow and scale through the Microsoft ecosystem. And I've lived in partner space for quite some time. So in fact, Brian and I have known each other for quite a number of years, back when he was at Xero and I was at Apple. So delighted to be here, and hopefully we can have a great conversation.
Thanks, Sinead. Thanks for joining us and your support ongoing. Over to you, Rob.
Yep. Well, first off, I had my birthday yesterday and I just turned 26. So thanks very much, Sinead. So definitely chronological. So yeah, I was at Xero for a very long time where I met Bryan and several people that are online here. Great to see you all. And I spent the last 2 years working with an amazing group of people around the world, basically building a product that pretty much did everything that I needed at Xero, but we couldn't quite manage to build out. And I'm not going to be here kind of flogging ChannelBoost, but I do want to say that I'm very proud that we've kind of, it's like any of us, when you build something that has been a pain point yourself, you kind of start feeling a bit like it's your baby, but it's great. We're kind of designing something that's time to speed to market for anything in the partner channels. And a big shout out to Bryan and Scott, who have been helping us from the get-go, building it out. So very proud of it. We won't be showing today, but if you've got any questions about it, feel free to touch base. Scott's just dropped the link in the thread, and I'm pretty keen to jump in because this has been a great work of collaboration between Hockey Stick and ChannelBoost, particularly Doug LeBarn, who's like, I think he's the only person I've ever met who's got a PhD in marketing. So it's a great report. So let's jump in.
All righty. Thanks, Rob. So a lot of you, first kick off with, a lot of you on the call today have also contributed to the report that we've been able to produce. So we had over 60 leaders from right across the region to contribute here, and a lot of senior leaders as well who do own a P&L, who are responsible for partnerships within their organization, building and growing teams to realize the potential of what partnerships can deliver with and through partners alongside go-to-market motions. So whether it's inbound, outbound, and direct sales team, product-led, AI emergence, everything. What does partnerships mean for your organization? So firstly, big shout out to everyone. The end of the session as well, we'll give access to the report beyond some of the insights we'll be sharing today. So of those contributors, as you can see, it's far and wide from a lot of the leading B2B tech companies. Briefing call yesterday, Sinead asked a great question of what kind of partnerships are we looking at here? We saw contributions from those in B2B tech companies, some of our VC audience who are ecosystem led. Some people are focusing on resellers or co-sell motions, which we'll get into the report. But it's going to give you a real dynamic view of the role of partnerships across the business, of the organization, but also where you're at in your career around where you're focusing on partnerships. I think to set the scene, typically when we engage with clients, it's one of two things they're after. They want a mountain of fire hose of leads, right, from the top of the funnel. Like, which partners can deliver us leads tomorrow? Maybe just to fulfill a founders or CEOs or chief sales, chief revenue officer. We don't want to hire lots of people and we need leads to deliver, but also on the bottom line as well. Maybe it's a case of we don't need to want to hire as many salespeople. Can partnerships deliver? And curious in the chat, is this resonate for you in your role today? Are people focusing more on the top line or the bottom line for the role of partnerships? We're going to keep it active and we're going to draw some insights as we go. So today, are you looking to drive top line growth through partnerships or bottom line efficiencies as your core focus? One or the other. If you're going to choose one to report back to the CEO, the board, those founders and CEO. All righty. Your top line's coming through heavy around it. I know from some previous reports, about 80% of people working in partnerships are focused on driving top line revenue that they can pass back through the business. And it's always the how to do it, which we're going to focus for this today. So Scott's going to load a poll right now just to get a sense check of what it looks like for your organization, because although we had 60 plus leaders, present to this today, we've got well over 150 people joining us, on the core and for this webinar today. So just punch in the response here. The benchmark data which we see in the States, and when we head over there every year to be able to bring some Silicon Valley insights back, is it's predominantly about 30% as a benchmark bellwether in market. So that's 30% of revenue driven from partnerships. And that's regardless if it's resellers, co-sell, referrals to go with it. But so, Scott, can we see some results as everyone's throwing those through upcoming? Maybe just throw it in the chat around what responses we're sort of seeing. I don't see the option to answer the poll. All right, well, maybe it's just you, Dane. We'll keep going around it. So we'll keep moving forward. So like I said, it's about 30% of what we're seeing. So some organizations are at 10%, wanting to get 20. Some are at 30, trying to push to 40, and some are just getting started. It depends. All right, let's set the scene. I'm going to start actually, I'm going to reverse this one and say the bottom one first. Acceleration of AI everywhere. Can we build joint value propositions with partners using AI? Can we build mutual success plans? Can we build our strategy? How are we engaging internally around how do we do jobs and tasks? It's our new norm, and it's rapidly changing. We also know the global market instability with tariffs and Trump's antics, call it that. Global wars, leadership changes, with many elections happening around the world. And the second point, which I think continues to evolve, which is also the opportunity for all of us on this call right now, is that the traditional go-to-market methods are no longer as effective, and the buyer behavior is changing. So, Rob, I just might go on this second point because, you're building our ChannelBoost at the same time and building together the motions. Like, what are you seeing? If you rewind, say, 10 years ago, you're at zero of what the traditional model was. And, nearbound is a term which is emerging. We had outbound sales, inbound, nearbound, or partner-led, ecosystem-led. Like, what are you seeing on this point number 2?
Well, first off, probably the most obvious ones, which everyone in the chat here are very familiar with, the partner landscape, but it's no longer spray and pray. Like, you're going in there with a scalpel, you've got proximity. I think that's really fantastic in terms of where we are now, particularly for more of the complex businesses. I think we're seeing some amazing tooling come through the direct channels now, like, the signal insights and everything like that. I think, and again, not here to plug ChannelBoost, but you need tooling and a better set of tooling inside the channel space as well. And then the only other bit that I would say is, if you have, no one really talks about it, but if you have equally amazing partner leadership teams amongst a set of competitors, how do you out-partner your partners? And that's one that I know you talk about a lot, Bryan, but it always resonates very strongly with me.
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise, they're not going to give you time, energy, and effort. And everyone on the call here is in partnerships trying to drive that forward. And if I message them right now and sort of say, hey, I've got an exciting new partnership, I default as a pain in the ass or a distraction, right? So we've got to out-partner your partners there. I do use that one a lot. Sinead, what's your view between 2 and 3 on this one? I'll pass over to you.
Well, I mean, AI is already changing everything. Microsoft has got Build happening at the moment. I was hoping to, I did consider staying up until 2 a.m. to watch it, but I did not. So I don't have all of the amazing updates from Build. But I say is that AI is going to be changing how software companies are selling and the type of interaction that software companies will have with their customers. We're seeing a huge uptake of, the co-pilot element being built into what we would have traditionally seen as a SaaS company or a SaaS offer. And so, co-pilot agents and other types of agents will absolutely need to be built in. If you're not thinking about it, you will be left behind. There's no, as I said to my daughter, that you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. That's it. It's out. And companies like Microsoft and other hyperscalers and other AI and cloud companies are here to help if you don't know how to do it. But 100% AI is going to change. And then what does that mean? I guess in terms of your actual go-to-market strategy, how do you? It's a really new, it's such an interesting paradigm in terms of how you reach your end customer. And I mean, this is Sinead's view, but you could, in theory, think about like a little agent is going to be here talking to an agent from your customer. So does that mean that we have to have a very different way of actually considering who is going to be making the decision? And so I think that we're going to see in the next 6 months, the whole dice and everything being kind of thrown out and everything being reshuffled and figuring out what are we actually going to do. And very similar to your slide here, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Sinead. And I think it also is going to be months. It's not going to be years. This change is happening so fast everywhere, and the role for everyone on the call as well is going to continue to evolve, and we have to stay up and stay ahead if we effectively want partnerships to remain an impact. But maybe how we go about it with AI tools and our role we play is going to move at a very rapid phase. So let's keep going. All right. Well, we've decided to break this session into 3 sections. So firstly, what can we learn from the report and the benchmark data we've been able to create? Be able to discuss and have an active discussion with the audience here around, what do we do now? What's the insights into actions? And then thirdly, what does this mean for your partnering approach? For those of you in Australia, obviously, we're starting to gear up in terms of FY26 planning. For those over the ditch in New Zealand, we know that you're already underway. And so what is the role of partnerships from the start of April, right, as we get going? It's always hard from our perspective. Some companies operate on calendar year. So then they're kicking into Q2 well into it. So like we said at the start, we want to make sure there's insights that you can take away, and we encourage you to write a mountain of notes or ChatGPT record or do whatever you want as we go through it. So I think we've covered this before, so I won't spend too much time here. We just want the chat to keep flying, and Scott's in the background moderating that to go with it. So to kick off this one, I might pass over to Rob around, what's some of the insights that you've sort of drawn from the report, and I might just sort of kick off with this one for a conversation piece, and let's get into it. Over to you, Rob.
I think you're on mute.
I think he said something really profound then too, I reckon. So
it looked really profound.
It was actually the meaning of life, and everyone just missed it when I was on mute, and I apologise.
42, isn't it? 42.
In this case, it's 67, because 67% of people, of the respondents, said that they would increase their investment in partnerships. So I think that says 2 things. One, Bryan has an amazing network of partner leadership people to talk to, and a lot of the respondents are in the partner channel, which is great, because it would not be good if people in partner-led channels said that they were not investing in next year's growth. So for me, that speaks to optimism, which is great, and I think that's really, really important. And I think the other bit that then follows through from that slide is, if that's the what, how are they actually looking to invest that? So the following slides, when we get to it, we'll actually start saying, well, where are they going to place those bets? And Jason put up a very interesting point, which is, CFOs aren't signing off on costly projects, which is so true. So, how do you align in decision-making, uncertainty in decision-making, so that you have linear outcomes between investment and return? So in this slide, we can see the how. And I love research where either 1, it changes the way you think, or 2, it's quite polemic. And here you can see that referrals are by far leading the way in terms of how people are selling through channels. And that's a great starting point. So, that's one of the things that we're highlighting in the report. And it makes sense, intuitively, but it's actually quite nice to back it up with something that actually has a sizable pool in the research cohort, which was north of 60. So that was probably the first one. And then when we're looking here with the ranking most important through to least important, Sinead actually said a very interesting thing yesterday, and I might steal your thunder if that's okay, Sinead, but it was the connection between referrals and co-selling and how interlinked they are. So why don't I actually, you know what, I'm not going to steal your thunder. Sinead, over to you, so you can explain that. I feel bad pinching that, but it's a really good point.
You want me to talk about that now? Yeah, I think, gosh, I was profound yesterday and maybe not so much today, but there's a huge link between referrals and co-selling. For Microsoft, and obviously I'm going to just talk about us specifically, but I'm sure it's similar with other hyperscalers. You're not going to get into the co-selling arena, if you haven't put a referral in through, whatever tool it happens to be. For us, it's Partner Center. And so, that unlocks the gate. So if you've put your referrals in, if you've put all the information in about the opportunity and the deal and all of that stuff, that then really unlocks the opportunity to co-sell either directly with a human or just co-sell through the marketplace. And so I think that there's probably another level down of this data that we could go into, which would really infer that relationship between co-selling and referrals, and co-selling without a referral. How does that work, right? And so
we usually think about it in 3 buckets. Like, and I think Bevan in the chat made a really good point that this ecosystem-led growth is a strategic pillar. Firstly, it's an overlay across all the business units, and what's the role of sales, marketing, customer success, with the endorsement and support from the leadership team. As per Jason's point before, that you need the support and enablement from leadership to be able to bring this to life. We think of it in like 3 buckets of, we want from partners, we want insights, we want influence and intros, but it doesn't always necessarily happen in that order. So to Sinead, to your point, yes, you might get a referral being the intro, but if they can't help along a deal cycle with more influence and insights, to Bevan's point in the chat, then it's not a transactional model anymore, which we'll get to upcoming a little bit further. The other sort of takeaway when I was looking at these benchmarks is thinking through, like, if for those of you who are building the plan and sending it back to the business, and we do a lot of work with CROs, of if we had a bottoms-up plan and sort of said, well, we need 30% of revenue from partnerships, you'd be looking at which of these partner categories is going to deliver for that. There's the hopes and dreams of referrals and the fire hose of customers, which everyone's seeking. But what is the role of tech partners, and what can you do with those? Second bucket, are we even ready for co-selling? Are we too immature as a business to be actually enable that? And then a lot of the emphasis of what we're looking for is the how to bring it to life, as to Bevan's point, around the partner enablement, as Nish over at pay.com.au, partner enablement, right? That's the secret sauce. The other thing which the report gets to, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, is partner ops. Like, I think last year, Des and I on the call were talking around like the needs of the line of sight to the ROI of partnerships. If you say it's going to be 30% or 40%, like, how do you get there? Which actual partners are going to deliver? What partner categories? What do you need for partner enablement or partner ops, and tying that together? And I think for all of us on the call who are working in partnerships, there's a really important critical skill set to be actually, you can know those numbers around how do you get to where you want to go. So I sort of see that as whatever the trend is of the partner categories you're focusing on, it's got to roll up into a number that you can stand behind. Yeah, well said, Des, around the partner activation. And check out Partner Elevate around how do they do it. They're doing a fantastic job. Based in Sydney now, formerly Brisbane. Isn't that right, Des? All right, well, let's keep going. So to your point, Rob, if that's sort of stuff we learn from the report, then let's talk about the now what, right? Like, provide some of these insights to people who have registered and downloaded a report. Like, let's talk about, like, what can we actually get going for them as they sort of forward plan for the years ahead and the months ahead, and be able to say back to, the leadership team or the board with confidence around, this is what we've got to require to stand up for success. So, Rob, back to you, and let's digest this one to keep the conversation going. About the confidence levels around the manage and scale partnerships to provide that line of sight to the ROI. Over to you, Rob.
Well, probably the best story is ourselves setting up a partner program. And I mean, obviously I went down I wouldn't say a traditional route, I'd say, maybe best practice route. It's like, who's your ideal partner profile, understand those partners' ICPs, the joint value proposition. But I've kind of come away with slightly different thinking now, which is I'd rather just get out there, work really closely with a tight bunch of partners and understand in the field with them what's working on the co-selling side with the joint value proposition. And this might be my bias from moving from large company to startup, to be fair, but I just have a genuine desire for speed. So it's like, get out there, test, iterate. What did I learn? It's like the number of surprises I've had around my hypothesis just being broken, which is good. It means I'm still learning. I've got a lot to learn, but it's been really quite refreshing understanding what's right. And it kind of makes sense because we're going through such a dramatic shift in the way that people are approaching technology, tech spend right now, and what's going to happen in what is still relatively bullish economic conditions, albeit with a lot of uncertainty. It's not like we're in recession periods at the moment, but it is a lot of change, just people trying to stay ahead of what's actually happening with the new ChatGPT release, for instance. Do I use O3 or O4 for certain tasks? Like, it's a lot. So I have been surprised by just the need to move quickly. So the confidence is there. I think for me, it's just kind of us all as a partnership leader community, challenging our echo chamber conversations all the time and being out there and talking to those joint customers as much as possible, which, what I would say most people here would agree. But if anyone feels strongly, please disagree in the chat and we can have a natter there online.
Yeah, love it, Rob. And I really like the point around build deep, not broad. Go deep with some partners and really get these motions underway. And as Jason's point, he raises in the chat, that's there's got to be cross-functional alignment. Just because you want to do something in isolation partnerships, if the sales team's not bought in to drive, referrals, influence insights, intros back across, then it's in vain. So we often talk about the win the hearts and minds internally is as critical as externally. And to be able to get that, you really need a top-down support from the business to showcase the reason for it. So with that,
I'd like to just on that, Bryan. I think it's a really interesting. I've observed this really interesting sort of trend that's been happening with Microsoft in the last two and a half years, and we've gone through. Marketplace kind of was around. It's been around for a number of years, but I think that when we originally started with it, it was difficult for our sellers and our partners to align, because the sellers were not being paid in the same way that the partnerships were selling. You know what I mean? Like they were just not getting paid. And so Microsoft made this really interesting switch into the actual, it sounds like somebody's got one of those technical keyboards. They're typing loads of stuff, which is great. But Microsoft's made this this switch to the compensation and the remuneration of all of the sellers, right? So each seller now has a marketplace build sale target. And that means that, in the bucket of things that they have to sell and in the bucket of things that they can get paid on, marketplace build sales is a key driver for them. And if they don't achieve it, and their leaders don't achieve it, their managers don't achieve it, then they don't get, the overall team bonus, right? So that's like a real carrot stick kind of mentality, but it has been implemented in such a way that now all of the sellers are aware of how to drive conversations to marketplace, how to ensure that their customers are thinking about marketplace. And they come to me and they go, like, is this company on marketplace? How do we get them on marketplace? How do we make sure that they're Azure benefit eligible, meaning that they can decrement some of the Mac or Azure commitment that they've made? And it's changed the conversations. It's changed that dynamic, around the seller conversations and the seller journey. So yeah, it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely, Sinead. And I think if you're not following Jay McBain, who's the chief analyst at Canalys, you should be. I'll get Scott to drop his LinkedIn in the chat. He's really leading the way with how that is changing. I remember last year, Sinead, I did a leadership workshop, and the head of sales said, I want partners to send us regular leads. I don't really have time to talk to them. And I was like, well, that's just not going to work. Let's just pause there and re-educate around what the role is, right? But if we take a step back and think that, all right, well, we want referrals as the prominent for this audience and those in the report, it's not a case of anymore of hoping that there's a fire hose of referrals coming through and the sales team sort of close it out. So, Sinead, over to you. We talked about this yesterday around the role of partners before, during, and after the sale, building on your comments around the marketplace evolution of what that looks like. How are you seeing this sort of actually play out?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of I kind of always go back to the consumerization of how we're buying, right? And it's we buy online, we sit in front of our screens, we as consumers go to Amazon, or we go to whatever, Kohl's, Woolies. We're doing all of this stuff online. We are the ones who are actually making that decision and pressing click and go, and that has now crept into the workplace. And you think about I mean, I kind of wish I was a millennial, but I'm not. I'm a Gen Xer, and just scraping through. But the boomers are leaving. The Gen Xers are we're really stuck. We don't really know which way we are. We're the ones who've kind of worn the pathway for the millennials. The millennials have come through and they've gone, you know what? This is not how I want to buy. This is not how I want to interact with companies. I want to be able to see, and I want to be able to make a decision and buy online the way I buy my clothes or my groceries. And that has really infiltrated how software sales are done, and even hardware sales. And Jay's, I follow Jay, very closely, and we're very connected. He's connected with all of the big hyperscalers, but he talks about this sort of potential TAM, right? So the total addressable market for marketplaces, and he's actually saying it's $85 billion by 2028. Like, that's insane, right? And originally that was said. He said that would only be $50 billion by 2027. So growing, and the fact that those people who are now making procurement decisions are the younger generation, right? That really is leading into this whole new life cycle of the sale, and how you have to then think about, how am I positioning this to my end customer? How am I positioning this to the person who's really going to be buying it? And you get in super early as well. So, one of the things that I guide and coach the partners that I'm working with is, it's really hard to shoehorn like a marketplace modern selling conversation once you've sold the deal. Like, you have to do it at the beginning, because once they've gone to procurement and they've said, hey, get approval for whatever it is that they're going to get approval for, the ink is dry. They're not going to go back in again and go, oh, how can we think about doing this on a marketplace? That's not going to happen. So you've got to do it from the very beginning. And I think that's if that's the takeaway that you hear, that you remember from me, it's get in at the beginning and start that conversation. And it kind of really goes back into the deal reg, right? So if you've registered the deal, you're having the conversation, you've got a good relationship with the sales teams in wherever you're selling, and you have those conversations together, that then becomes true co-selling, true partnership. And you then end up partnering with the customer because you're helping them on their journey as well. You're making it easy for them to be able to buy without putting all of the roadblocks in place.
Yeah, well said, Sinead. So let's keep it moving. So now we know that referrals is the prominent one for this report around what people are trying to drive forward. We talked a little bit about the how and how it's changing. A lot of you are confident, which is great. However, what's your biggest challenge on building or scaling partnerships? We're going to try another poll now, if Scott can attempt in the background, and if not, we'll answer in the chat. We'll see how we go looking forwards. I might just sort of kick off some insights here, and I'll pass over to Rob. I think the lack of resources has been a legacy issue for ongoing for partnerships people. There's often in isolation to go send us leads and bring it in. And I think it is changing and evolving, but we've all got to continue to advocate internally around what's required for success. If this is our number from a top down or a bottom up of what we've rolled up to achieve, what do we actually need to be able to drive that forward? Resources. So that could be partner ops, sales ops, or rev ops, partner marketing, which is a critical part, which Scott delivers for us ongoing, is a key theme. Rob, over to you as you're building out ChannelBoost as well and building out your partners. How are you thinking about the biggest challenges is getting the partnerships, not just 0 to 1, but I'm going to say 2 to 10, as Sinead sort of, we're building the foundations of a crawl, walk, run.
Yeah, 100%. So just before I answer that question, Bryan, I find it quite interesting that lack of resources is a perennial number. I don't think we'll see that change over the next decade. Oh, here we go. We've got the poll coming in. This is great. So can everyone see that online? Yep, we can see it. Just see if there's any comments coming through. Okay, it's looking pretty good. All right, so lack of resources, 41%. So that pretty aligns with the graph. Thanks, Haley. Dane, Heather. Recruiting partners 21%, measuring partnership ROI, and aligning internally. So it's fairly even, the last three. Okay, that's interesting. So that kind of marries up quite nicely with the report. The ones here that are kind of interesting is those last two, because it's neither either 100% kind of being this challenge or the smallest challenge. It's quite nice bell curve, if you will. And I think when you count up the number of partners who responded underneath those bell curves, there are two big issues that we're facing there. So that aligning partnerships internally, again, that's always going to be a perennial issue, because as strategies change, it's going to have to change as well as CapEx, OpEx. And then measuring and demonstrating partnership ROI. I think that's a really interesting one in terms of how do we make sure that the enablement side connects to the operation and the tooling side back to the reporting internally as well. So in some ways, the aligning partnerships often requires great data. So I feel like in some ways it's predicated on the last graph, which is kind of why they're quite similar. So to answer your question, Brian, biggest challenge by far is we want to drink our own champagne by growing with ChannelBoost at ChannelBoost. But at the same time, we're in the crawl stage, where we are a startup. But I think one of the nicest things that we put together in there is build for the future. So in our partner agreement, I don't mind sharing this online, yes, we've got the traditional referral fee, multi-period, but through Brian's insights, we're also including in there a parallel influence fee as well. Now, that is probably at the kind of walk or run phase of a partner program, but I actually think it's fantastic having it up front because it takes away that conflict between the direct channel and what we're doing. So one, I don't think we're being greedy, but two, I really like the fact that if a partner can't refer it, they still have the opportunity to influence it. And it's a win-win still, like be able to speed up time to close. Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I agree on those points. It's like Bevan sort of said in the chat throughout, it's like, resourcing on the people front, not actually just on support around the business as well moving forward. I think that's where Des mentioned earlier in the chat that you need constant, storytelling internally around the role of partners, what it means, for those other sales members internally and externally as well, with partners around the value they provide ongoing, because we've got to continue to showcase that, in order to unlock business case for more resources to do more. Sinead, is anything before we move on to build on this one on the challenges you're seeing when the partners that you're working with on the Microsoft lane?
I was just starting to write back to Bevan, and I think it's kind of connected in this, right? So some of the challenges maybe that some of the partners, particularly those who are, a little bit smaller, maybe just focused on Australia, not really looking at going global, don't have a very big, heavy application that they're selling. Sometimes it's very hard for them to get cut through because what they're looking, and these are my notes, and I'll send it to Bevan in a sec, but the Microsoft sales team, and I'm sure it's the same with other, as I say, other hyperscalers, they have so many things to sell, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things that they can potentially sell. In fact, there's thousands, 500,000 applications available to sell, solutions to sell via the marketplace. 2,000 of them in this region are healthcare focused, right? So you can just imagine, like, it's just crazy. So to get that cut through, you want to be able to figure out a way to help them get compensation. You want to help them to close, hit their targets and retire quota and that kind of thing. And in order to do that, you've got to be listed as what we term co-sell eligible or Azure benefit eligible. And, it's a benchmark. And so kind of back to your point at the beginning, Rob, about, kind of going deeper with, a certain number of companies. Microsoft has probably taken a leaf out of that book as well, whereby we are really going sort of deep with companies that see the value of selling based on their build on top of Azure. So to Bevan's point, a question, do I have to be, building on Azure to be listed in the marketplace? You don't have to be building on Azure, but you won't get co-selling if you're not built on Azure, right? So you can build a Teams app and be on AWS, but no one's going to really co-sell that with you. Whereas if you're built on Azure and you've got a Azure first kind of, Azure best sort of mentality with your app, you can do the same with another cloud provider, by the way. You can have multiple of these if you're big enough. But if you do that, then the Microsoft sales teams will get paid on what they sell for you or on what you sell. You don't even have to necessarily have them on board, So that's probably the biggest challenge, to get people to really see the benefit of actually building on Azure and realizing that that's going to turn in so much more to your customer, and then ultimately to the partnership that you have with the sales team.
Yeah, I'm gonna play devil's advocate on that one, Sinead, and sort of challenge the thinking of, I think, if you're working with a platform or a hyperscaler and you're building to it, it does take time. You've got to do those things which Sinead mentioned in order to get recognized amongst a sea of choices. A lot of companies, we encourage them to build to it for table stakes, but also you can't wait. So whilst you're building that and building that momentum to go through it, we encourage you to look at companies in and surrounding your ecosystem, thinking about who are others who are like-minded, similar stage of growth, who do an assessment of your ecosystem around, what is the capacity, commitment, and capabilities of surrounding partners to be able to reach more of the ideal customer that you want to go after, whilst continuing to deepen the relationships with Microsoft and other hyperscalers as you're coming through. Because as you're doing that, you're going to be able to build case studies and assets to go with it. But I know back in the Xero era, Sinead, there were so many upcoming companies who would want to do more and be more with Xero as the prominent platform. But as you know, like with so many applications and so many SKUs or line items, what they could co-sell or sell, you really do need to stand out, and you need that credibility and those runs on the road. Rob, what's your thoughts on that before we jump into what does it mean for your partner strategy and approach?
Well, if I go back into the data from the research report, we've got the opportunity of resellers, which in a way is an aggregation of like your resellers in a marketplace. But I think there's a lot of work still to be done when it comes to white labeling. And I think part of that answer is we all have been talking here in the chat around not just the ROI, but that's one of the measures. And we know that anytime people look at white labeling, there's a very high upfront opportunity cost and investment cost, particularly on the tech side, with an uncertain return. Like if you're not in the buy flow, it's unlikely you're going to get a return on that. So I think there's an opportunity there for better tooling in that space. But when we come back through here, referrals still the number one source for the channels that we're seeing in the interviews.
Yeah, but equally, Rob, they're not performing fantastic as well. So that opportunity we talked around earlier around partner enablement and going from good to great still exists for all of us, right? And obviously, a lot of people here have focused on top line revenue as per the start of the chat, and we need to drive that forward. So, there's no resting on our laurels that it's all firing, everything's working. It's a work in progress to sort of have an accelerated upside, right?
100%. And this, contrasting the first slide that you showed, the first slide is forward-looking, like the optimism, whereas this is almost historical looking, saying how's it been performing over it. So I would hope that when we look at this in a year's time, this has actually started moving towards where the first slide was. So, more ones underneath the referral channel.
Absolutely. And I think the opportunity for everyone on the call is if you're able to move everything to the left, like you said, then that's where promotions, career development, and more opportunities is going to come with it to be able to validate and bring it to life moving forwards. So we are getting close to time as we start to sort of unwind some of the insights we've shared. In terms of the summary, and these are my takeaways and some shared from the reports, is you need to start with the ecosystem viability. Like what does your surrounding ecosystem look like? More broadly, as Nish said in the chat earlier, partner enablement and partner operations. The opening question I often ask when I'm doing a leadership roundtable is, why would someone refer us? And guaranteed the founder, CEO, and chief sales officer say, because we're awesome, right? but that doesn't actually get them to hit their targets or why they would care around it. So getting that strengthened partner operations, partner enablement, and tying that really closely to the ROI we spoke about, I think is a critical part. And as Bevan highlighted in the chat earlier before, and there's this opportunity for all of us to drive this ecosystem-led growth if we can measure it. The leading and lagging indicators, like Jack was sort of saying earlier, is like a really critical piece to be able to drive this forward, to showcase internally, but also the value to your partners. Rob, I'll pass over to you. What's your one takeaway from the report, and then pass on to Sinead afterwards before we wrap up?
I found it incredibly positive. So when you read through the report, obviously you always have bias when people are forced to select a rating between 1 and 5, but it's efficient, and so that's why we do it, and it's great to see those results. But when you read through the quotes and you actually look at the words being used, I came away with an oversense of positivity for the year ahead. That got backed up to the data. There's going to be growing investment into this space. We've been talking about in the chat with sales enablement, making sure we've got the right tooling and everything. So I think we will see not only future investment, but I have no doubt we will see more and more return on that investment over the next 12 months. So yeah, a sense of positivity, and hopefully this report will be of use to people internally when you are, seeking alignment with other teams.
Fantastic. Sinead, what's your one takeaway from the report? Thanks, Rob.
I don't think I have one specific. I think what I liked about the report is that everything is aligned with already. That partnerships are really important because how long ago is this quote came out? Software is eating the world, but it really is, and software sales are going to change continually, and AI is absolutely going to be driving that and changing so quickly that if we don't have, like, we're not buying things anymore. We're still buying people. We're still buying relationships. We're following people. I mean, you even see myself and Bryan and Bryan and Rob, like, we follow people throughout their careers, and I think that that's a really important thing to continue to drive. And by embracing the data and taking that data into your own organizations and saying, like, this is super important for us, we really need to drive this as an important channel, then partnerships becomes even more impactful, I think, because direct selling is amazing, and that's great, but we don't have enough people to be always driven by direct sales, right? So partnerships is the absolute scale, and partnerships makes more possible.
Yeah, I agree today. And I think it's an opportunity for everyone on the call here to continue to lead the way around it. And in terms of like the numbers on the call, everyone stayed throughout, which is super positive. This is the first of this report in APAC region to be able to share and produce some benchmark data, and we want to be able to do more and be more ahead. So we'll share an NPS upcoming around what that looks like. In a chat, I'm just keen to see, like, what are you going to do now? Now what? Beyond download this beautifully produced report, thanks to Scott Cooper and friends. Now what in the chat around what are you going to do from here? So as we look to close out, it'd be good to get some comments in from those on here. What are you going to action? And Scott, if you can just launch the poll in the background, if it's functioning as it should in 2025, that would also be a useful exercise. I'll just give a minute. Focus on partnership client referrals. Thanks, Reese. Yeah, how do you go deeper? I encourage you, like, what's the partner value proposition? Why would they work with you, right?
I love what Jason said. That's so important, like, actually celebrating those wins and calling out the partner manager, right? Because those people are often the silent, orchestrator in the background. They're pulling everything together. They see the big picture. And generally, I even know in our world, often get left off of emails and, celebratory, well done win wires. So yeah, always sing out everyone's praises, because it's so important.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sinead. And it looks like there's good demand to do more, be more. And the next time we do these, we want to invite your partners along as well, because ultimately your success is theirs and vice versa is what we're all preaching about, but bringing it to life. Alrighty. As closing up, if anyone does need help in enabling partnerships for growth, that's what we do at Hockeystick. We're a small but mighty team, as Scott and I say. You can jump on there to book some time with us as we sort of gear up for FY26 across the region and to join our growing portfolio client. And over to you, Rob. Tell us a little bit more about ChannelBoost as we wrap up.
So if anyone's interested to find out how you can do A/B testing in partner channels, or have a single platform where you can even have your strategic partners baked in, we've even just launched, and thanks to Tara for this, a complete affiliate linkage, but also unique linkage system. So refer a friends, but even brand campaigns. So you can connect what you're doing with your partners to internal comms as well, and push that out and track to see who's actually opened it up internally or who's not interested. So we've got a team of over 50 developers who have been building out this platform for the last 2 years. It's turning into quite an operating system, but we're still pricing it as a kind of fast-moving consumer good SaaS stack. So it's great. We're SOC 2 ISO certified, and last but not least, just deployed webhooks and a full API documentation. So I need to lift up my game and start doing some showcasing on LinkedIn. So I guess it's fair call to the 50 remaining online. You'll be hearing a lot more about ChannelBoost over the next few months.
Fantastic. And we've got on the back of this, we've got a bunch of ideas around where we can share some more insights ongoing beyond the report itself, and we'll continue to surface findings so you can have those leadership conversations ongoing to support you in your roles, the partner enablement, the partnerships, ROI that we spoke about so heavily, to make it rain referrals, and other goodness. So with that, thanks again for Scott for driving behind the scenes. Download the report, absorb it, and reach out to us with any thinking that you might have further. So Rob,
where's the QR? I forgot. I didn't put my QR code in, and I can't find it now.
We'll send it out as part of the follow-up, Sinead.
Yeah.
If we haven't got it, if Scott hasn't dropped it in the background already.
Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for giving up their
awesome
day lunch.
Thank you. It's been great.
Brian. Thanks, Sinead. See ya.
Take care. Bye.